there's the holiday season. I mean, I was talking about skipping December. We can't do that.
I was so
I mean,
glad
what the heck? What the hell?
So it's not a time where you're thinking, oh, it's the holiday, time for to get together with my family. Let me just stop for a day,
No,
hang out with my
there's no
family.
timeouts or vacations in
No.
addiction. It's any
Can you say
commitment,
that again?
huh?
Can you say that again? So
Yeah, there's no timeouts or vacations from addiction. Like I don't if I got to pick and choose when I drank alcohol, I'd still be drinking alcohol like a normal person.
Welcome back to our podcast. I'm Tony. I'm joined with Mace and Matt, and we are back for our fifth episode of Ask the Addict. And I am a addict and alcoholic myself, coming up on 5 years of sobriety in January. And this is a podcast that us three created that is informative for the families of those who have loved ones who are struggling with addiction and who have questions and who have thoughts and concerns, or just want to hear from another person who thinks and has been through some of the same things as their loved one has. And I'm here to share my experience, strength, and hope, and just maybe possibly help one family out, make one family feel a little bit better that night, make one family realize that there is a lot of hope in the situation with their loved one, because I know that some family out there somewhere helped my family when I struggled in and out of recovery and addiction for a little bit over 20 years until I was able to put together a few days here over the past a little bit under 5 years. So this is a forum where we're open, we're honest, and we share our views just to try to help the families and those who are affected by addiction and alcoholism. A brief background about myself. I've been through many treatments. I've been to institutions that includes jails and prisons, and I found my solution through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and sponsorship. And there are many paths and many other ways to your loved one getting sober at some point. But that was my journey and my path, and now I'm able to share my recovery and my sobriety with my family and friends and loved ones. So if I could help just one person out there understand maybe what they're going through with their loved one, or what's on their loved one's mind, or why their loved one did this, or possibly how their loved one is thinking about that, then that's why I'm on here. And I'm glad to be back for you guys for a fifth episode.
Thanks, Tony. My name's Matt. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I have a sober date of March 14th, 2021. And God willing, in March I'll have 4 years of consecutive sobriety. And I'm also a drug and alcohol counselor at this stage of my life. And it's a really rewarding experience kind of being able to sit on the other side of the room and interview and talk to people that were in my position, a few years ago, and try to pass along some of the knowledge that I've gained, and use personal experiences where I can, especially in my work with families. I really, enjoy kind of working with them because it gives me some insight into like what I put the people in my life through, and seeing it through that lens. And we were kind of talking before the show, and I think like really what I envision for this show is to really just bridge the gap between like, okay, what is, if I'm the family member, what is this person in my life that's suffering through addiction? Like, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? And why are they doing the things that they're doing? Because from the outside, it seems insane, and it is insane. Like we as alcoholics and addicts do crazy, um, you know, incomprehensible things that make absolutely no sense, but it's really just like survival and self-preservation and everything that goes into that that leads us to, Tony talked about jails and institutions and can take you to a lot of dark places. And it's really a blessing to be able to like make it to rehab, to have support from your family. That was huge for me. Just knowing that I had like people in my corner like rooting for me. And I hope to give some of that same like hope and hope and faith to anyone listening tonight.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Tony and Matt. My name's Mace. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm also a certified family recovery coach, um, but I'm also a family member of someone who's in long-term recovery. And I love doing this podcast with the two of you because there's not a whole lot of resources out there for family members. There are more than there were 17 years ago when I was going through this. When I was going through this, I felt like Al-Anon was one of the only resources, and now there's all types of resources. But there's a lot of stigma around this disease, and so folks have a hard time navigating their way to finding those resources. So I really hope that this will be a resource for families who are struggling to help somebody with addiction. And also, I hope this is also an opportunity for us to destigmatize this disease, because that gets in the way of the person who's struggling getting help, and it gets in the way of family members seeking help also. And then the other thing is also just to shorten that time that it takes to get somebody help. It just can take a long time. It can be exhausting. There's a lot of denial around this disease. And so what we want to do is shorten that time. And there's things that we can do to help. So this is just a great space for us to just talk about what are some of those things that we can do to help. But before we can help, we've got to have some understanding. And that's why I just love this concept of Ask the Addict, because each of you bring this layer of understanding. So tonight, what I would love for our conversation to focus around is the holidays. And I'm going to give you lots of different scenarios, because there are lots of different scenarios when it comes to where folks are in their journey. Okay. Some folks are not even in treatment. Some folks are in treatment. Some folks are in early recovery. And so depending on the scenario, the question and the answer may be different. Okay. Because how I'm going to support somebody through the holiday in early addiction may look different than how I would support them 4-5 years out. Okay. But I want to start with this question. When you were in active addiction, what did you need from your friends and families during the holidays? And then we'll move to when you were in treatment and when you were in early recovery.
Money, so I could get one more. I mean, when number one, I mean, unfortunately, when I was in active addiction, I did not spend it with my family. I wasn't there. I just wasn't present. And the only thing that I would ever really think to ask them for was money so that I could supply my habit. And that could come in any form. It could, because as time went on, they kind of got hip to the fact that we're not sending you cash because we haven't seen you in a while. We don't really know how you're doing. We don't know what's really going on. But that love was still there, so they wanted to do something. And that's when, hey, send me anything new, because anything brand new, whether it was shoes, a Visa gift card, I can figure out how to turn it into cash with my addict mentality. And it's exactly what I did. So for me, the only thing that I was concerned about in active addiction during the holidays was getting anything that was of value so that I could turn it into money so that I could support my habit. And that's just the way that it was for me, throughout the years of using during the holidays, and needing friends and family, and only needing them for one thing, and that one thing was for me to continue my active use.
Thanks, Tony, for being so transparent about that.
That's
Matt,
that's a hard question to answer because like what did I need is I don't even know, but I know what I wanted. But those are two entirely different things, right? Because like when I was going through the holidays and I was drinking a lot, I don't think that I wanted anything differently. Like I was happy to be very drunk and, you know, pass out, like get super drunk before dinner and then like pass out of me, and like I don't know what it is that I needed. I enjoyed the time with my family, but I was always kind of hesitant to be like, okay, like how long am I gonna be in this situation? Like I'm always itching to get out, right? Like when can I go home so I can go back to doing what I want to do? Or like, are people gonna start asking me questions that I don't want or have the answers to? Um, so really, I think just like it is a nuanced question because is it your loved one's like 17th time relapsing where they like know that they have a problem, but they don't necessarily they're not ready to go to rehab right now, or are they still in that like pre-contemplation stage where they're just like unaware that like alcohol or drugs is even like an issue in their life? So if you're able to make that distinction, I think that can help kind of guide that answer. Like if they don't think that there is a problem, all you can really do is just show them that you love them and support them and like you're there for them when they need something. Not like money or Visa gift cards that Tony can sell later, but like, emotionally need something, right?
yeah.
But if they're if they already know like what the deal is and they know that they're struggling and they know that you know that they're struggling, it might be a different conversation. It can be like, yeah, like what can we do for you to make this easier so you can like get the help that you need or something like that.
So if I'm hearing you both correctly, like during the holidays, if someone's in active addiction, they're not really thinking about the holiday, which is, spending time together with your family, that connection and communicating and being together. You're still just thinking about drinking or drugging. Am I hearing you both correctly?
Yeah, yeah. I
Any
mean, holiday, birthday, anniversary for parents. It doesn't. Listen, when I was using, if I'm in active addiction, there's only one thing that matters when I wake up in the morning, and that's how am I going to get money or things that can help me get what I want, whether it's alcohol, drugs, heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine. It doesn't matter what you're doing. As long as I can get the means to the ends to do it, that's my number one goal. Now, once that goal is achieved, and it, over time, it comes a short period of time that it's achieved because I just need more and more. But once that's achieved, then I might answer a text message from mom and dad or call my brother, or you know what I mean. But until that's achieved, that's all that matters. Holiday, it doesn't matter if it's a holiday or if it's a regular day, because when I use, all my days run together and they're all the same, and I have one goal, until I can put that chemical down and get away from it, I only have one goal, and that goal is how to get more. And I'll use anybody and everybody that I can that's around me that allows me to use them or is near enough for me to manipulate them and use them in order to get what I want.
So it's not a time where you're thinking, oh, it's the holiday, time for to get together with my family. Let me just stop for a day,
No,
hang out with my
there's no
family.
timeouts or vacations in
No.
addiction. You know, it's any
Can you say
commitment,
that again?
huh?
Can you say that again? So
Yeah,
we,
there's no timeouts or vacations from addiction. You know, like I don't if I got to pick and choose when I drank alcohol, I'd still be drinking alcohol like a normal person. But like I unfortunately I can't do that. Like once I start doing that, like you won't see me for a while. Um and you know, I what I needed during the holidays was actually like a ride to the holidays, right? Because I wasn't getting there by myself. And if you wanted to see me, you probably had to come pick me up. Um, but yeah, any commitment is a horrible thing for me when I'm drinking, right? Like, even if it's something that I love or want to do, like I see that on my calendar, like later today or tomorrow, and I'm already dreading like the logistics of doing that. Do I feel like doing that? How am I going to pull this off? And it's not like, hey, it's Christmas. How can I stop drinking for today to see my family? It's how can I get away with drinking today while I'm seeing my family?
wow.
Yeah, I'll give just a quick story on. I was living in Wisconsin, and mom and dad had bought tickets for me to bought the plane ticket for me to come home, and had the got the Uber ready for me to come to my house and get me. Because I had a car, but I had made something up that something had happened to the car and it wasn't working. It was always something, and I never made it to the airport. Never made it to the. Didn't have to pay a dime. Never made it to the airport. Now, I think on the next time, my brother was doing. He had a conference or something out that way in the Midwest, in Denver or something. So he told mom and dad. He said, "Mom and dad, I was about an hour and a half away from Indianapolis, which was the major international airport, the closest that was around me. So my brother told my mom and dad, hey, I'll go to Minneapolis on the way back, meet him there, and then fly back to him. Never made it, never made it. Two times, everything was bought, paid for, had a family member coming to the airport out that way to meet me, and I never made it to the airport because I just couldn't put it down long enough in order to sober up enough in order to pack a bag and make it out of there. True story.
Matt, did you want to add anything or say anything else?
I have some stories I could tell, but I'm sure we'll have more episodes in the future.
Okay. Okay. So let's move on to let's move. I'm kind of debating between moving on to in treatment because a lot of folks when they're in treatment, they want to leave during the holidays. So if you could both just say a little bit about that. I don't know if you were ever in treatment during, the holidays, and how that impacted on you. If not, just from your experience from, people that you know. But I just see this happening a lot. Like it's like people want to leave treatment during the holidays. They say because they want to be home with their family, whether it's, a husband, a wife, a partner, with their kids. They don't want to miss the holiday with their kids. But there is this thing that happens during the holidays. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to bet that 80% of the people that AMA from treatment on the holidays because they want to be with their family on the holidays don't end up making it to their family. Um, usually that's like almost it sucks being in treatment. I wasn't in treatment around that time of year. But I know a lot of people that have been,
Mhm.
and it sucks. Like you're in rehab, you're already feeling bad about yourself and guilty about some decisions, and then you're thinking about like missing out on time with like your family or your friends or whoever, and you're reflecting on like, you know, past Christmases that have been great and, you know, everything in between there. And but oftentimes I'd imagine like people that leave for that reason are just using that as an excuse. Like, oh, I can't be in treatment right now. It's Christmas. I have to be home with my family. It's like, no, I'm pretty sure your family would much prefer that you're in treatment right now. Because that gives them a sense of like safety and security for you that, you know, if I had a loved one, I'd much rather them be in rehab than like run around the streets on Christmas. Um, so yeah, it's hard and, you know, kind of like to look ahead a little bit. I think, you know, depending on if they end, you know, if they go from rehab to like an outpatient program and that happens to line up right around the holidays, like I would probably encourage them to stay where they are. You know, if they're maybe like 2, 3, 4 months out and like have, you know, some time sober, then maybe like they can come home and enjoy the holidays and, you know, talk about that with them. But um, you know, a lot of people like fresh out of treatment, if they go to like a PHP program, like if they go home, they might not come back. Um, Oftentimes like home and their hometown is like a big trigger for relapse, whether it's the people there or the environment that they're getting high or drinking in. So I'm always a proponent of like stay out of the environment that is that trigger to you for like as long as you can.
Yeah, I to piggyback off of Matt, I mean, I pretty much agree with everything he said. Yeah, I can remember being in I was in treatment. I was in treatment 24/7. I was like a kid traveling in band camp, and I was in there during Easter one time, a couple times, Christmas, Thanksgiving. But I can remember the manipulation, and I can remember calling, writing the letter, or calling mom and dad, and saying, yeah, I really miss you guys. And now, granted, now mind you, I hadn't seen them all year because I was busy, in active addiction. But all of a sudden, when I got to the treatment center, oh, mom, I really want to see you. I mean, dad, I really need to. And it was a way of me knowing, because I knew a couple things could happen. Number one, if I could go home, I might run into an old friend, and that old friend might have an escape route for me in order not even to show up. That was number one. Number two, I understood that if I did see family during whatever holiday, ooh, he made a big step and he got sober. So let's maybe give him something. And then thereby my addicted brain, even though I had a little bit of sober time, maybe 15 days, 20 days, went straight to, I can bring that back to where, if I was going back to the treatment center or whatever, if they let me go home for 2 days, I could bring whatever I got from them back and then use that in order to, if I didn't want to be there anymore, get my first one. And when I say my first one, I'm talking about my first drink, first drug, whatever I had in mind. So there was definitely some manipulation in that. Could it be genuine? Absolutely. I mean, it absolutely could. But I think this is a spot where family members, if at all possible, could make small time in order to go see them on their grounds. Because what people tell us in AA is, even if you have 100 years, 50 years, 40 years, the holidays are times when you're supposed to do twice as much as you do during the normal seasons. And that's because holidays were big using and drinking times for those of us who are sober now. They were even probably more so than regular times. So if you're going to one meeting a week, it's time to go to three. It's time to find something, chair a meeting or get into service. Just pick up a little bit what you're doing over the holidays so you don't get antsy and have any mistakes. So that same truth should hold if your loved one's in treatment. Go see them. Hey, guess what, Billy? We're gonna come see you, and then you won't miss mom and dad so much. And that'll answer their question, and then they'll probably hang the phone up and say, "Damn, I guess they're coming up here. There's no leaving." So that's what seemed to work. That was my thought process, and that's what I think might work a little better.
No, I love that, Tony, because one of the things that I often tell families is they have to be strategic, and part of being strategic is being 5 steps ahead of the addiction. So you just, put us a couple steps ahead of it. And I think what happens for family members, and a lot of this is like if you liken it to playing chess, a novice chess player is only looking at their next move. Okay. But someone who's been playing chess for a while is, 5, 6 moves ahead in their head. And so we've got to be good chess players with this. So I like that. That's given us a couple moves ahead of it, ahead of the game. So like that. Matt, did you want to add anything to that or?
No, I like what Tony said at the end there is funny. If they're calling you from rehab, oh man, I really miss you guys. I want to come home. I want to see the dog, whatever. If you flip it back around, like, oh, no problem, Timmy. We'll come up there. We'll visit you. We'll bring Buster
Bring
along
the
for the
dog.
ride. All of a sudden, they're like, no, no, that's okay. I don't want to see you guys that bad. And it's like, all right, now I kind of can understand like why they missed me all of a sudden. They wanted to come home. They didn't care the other 364 days of the year too much.
Right. Mm.
So let's go move to early recovery. So they're in early recovery, and here's a question that comes up a lot. Is when somebody's in early recovery, what should I do about the holiday time having alcohol in my house? Serving alcohol. Should I not?
So, yeah. Were you done?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So, and I'll use the experience that I, was taught from my sponsor, and I'll use the experience that I used with my couple of sponsees is that so if you are going around family that drinks, and this is me telling another alcoholic, that is in the process, whether they've just been in 30 days, whether they've been in 2 years, 4 years, if you are concerned or have a thought about going around loved ones and there's going to be drinking because there's many, and guess what? It's okay. Listen, my brother and my dad, they can have a cocktail and not have 50 more. So they're allowed to drink. Now, my family chooses not to around me. But however, if they did, they're allowed to do that. And there are family members that have more than one and do it in the comfortability of their home, regardless of whether their loved one is sober or not. But their job, the alcoholic's number one job is to have a getaway plan. And that getaway plan does not have to be some, like crazy maze, like scientific plan. It can just be as simple as if you feel uncomfortable, here's what you do. You step outside and you call me and you have a meeting that you're close to that you can make and you can get to. It can be something as simple as that. For the loved one, it's good to communicate, if you're able to or if you're willing to communicate with your person who is in sobriety. Hey, how do you feel about John, Timmy, and Mary? Because Aunt Mary and Uncle John, they're going to have a couple drinks around. Are you going to feel comfortable there with them? Because if not, let's figure out what you're going to do for the block of time that they're there. Let's figure out maybe, because, they might not want to ask Timmy and Mary not to drink, but let's figure out what you're going to do in order to keep yourself safe because it's our house and your sobriety is important to us. So I think communication is the key from the loved ones to their alcoholic or addict that says, hey, what are you comfortable with and what are you not? And then it's the alcoholic and addict's job to be honest and tell them, well, I talked to my sponsor or I talked to somebody in the rooms or I talked to my counselor and they said that these are the suggestions that they gave me. So as long as everybody's on the same page and they know, hey, where did Tony go? He just disappeared. Well, Tony just went to his getaway plan. His getaway plan was to go outside to the big oak tree and make a couple phone calls, until he talked to the enough people, or until, maybe he went up the street to a meeting, whatever that getaway plan is, so that you feel better about the situation that you have to be in.
Yeah, from my own like personal experience and the way that I think about it, even to this day, like I've never wanted to be a burden on anyone else. I've never wanted to make my shit your shit. Um, and like when I think about alcohol, we'll talk about alcohol because typically like families at Christmas aren't like hanging around shooting heroin. It's typically alcohol, right? Um, so, you know, if I'm allergic to alcohol, I don't want everyone else to have to like if that's what they like to do and they can all do it normally, I don't want to like ruin their Christmas by not being able to like have fun. It's kind of like when like I don't know if you guys remember in like school they'd say like, "Oh, well this kid's allergic to peanut butter, so now no one can have peanut butter for lunch." I'm like, "That's ridiculous," you know? So like I don't want to dictate what you can and can't do. That's kind of, like Tony said, it's my responsibility to like know what I can and can't handle. And if I think that I can and then I can't, I need to have like an escape plan or whatever. Um, that being said, like if my parents ask me like, "Hey, are you gonna be comfortable going to such and such's houses when they're drinking?" Like, I'm probably gonna say yes, whether I feel like I am or I'm not, because like I don't want to mess up the plans or my ego gets in the way sometimes. Like I don't want to, feel like give people like a sense that like I'm not doing okay sometimes, especially in early sobriety. Um, so like maybe that's the family's time to say like, hey, I'm not so sure about our kid. Like maybe we should do like a quieter Christmas like at home where like it's just the immediate family and we're not drinking because like, you know, it's okay for like my parents to do that, that's one thing, but then for me to like have to go to a party when I'm 60 days sober and explain to like my third cousins and my uncle's wife's ex-husband or like whoever that like now I'm sober, like that becomes incredibly awkward for me, and that's a situation that I don't want to deal with. So I might recommend just like kind of changing plans or shifting gears a little bit, and that's in that instance.
Yeah, that kind of leads me to another question because family members struggle with like, what do we tell the aunts, the uncles, the grandparents when we're not showing up at at an event, or when you choose not to show up with us? And it puts people in like a weird position. Me as a family member, I don't want to. And again, and I don't know if this is like being triggered because of the stigma around it, or if it's coming from a place of protecting your privacy and not putting your business out there. It's hard to like discern which one is it coming from. Why am I not saying, hey, Matt's not coming with us, or we're choosing to just have a smaller time because I I'm either embarrassed by the situation or I want to protect your privacy.
I think for me the most important thing. So let's say that me, you, and Matt were um, the trifecta family, and let's say that I was the alcoholic in that dynamic, and you and Matt, we were deciding not to go over to Jane Doe's house. It doesn't matter what I tell Jane Doe why we're not coming. This is what matters. What matters is the three of us have a conversation and we come to the conclusion that Tony is okay with going or Tony is not okay with going. It doesn't matter whether you tell Jane and Johnny Doe that you guys are going to, they're flying to the moon with Elon Musk. I mean, it doesn't matter. They don't need to focus on that. You can make up. I'm not encouraging anybody to lie or anything like that, but you can make up your own story. What does matter is that the two or three or four or five, however many people are in that dynamic that are surrounded uh, that surround the alcoholic with love say, hey, we want to know from you, how do you feel about going over to a place where you know there's going to be drinking? If you're not okay with it, then we will make the appropriate phone call, or we will make the appropriate, whatever we're going to tell them, and we won't go, or we'll go for a shorter period of time. I'm more of a person that, because the thing about it is the Thanksgiving and holidays and stuff get lengthy. I mean, listen, we all love our families, but you don't have to be over there for 6 hours. Go over there to eat, spend 30 minutes afterwards, and then wrap it up and say whatever you got to say and get out of there. So, whatever they shouldn't focus so much on what they're going to tell them. Focus on, let's get an understanding of the alcoholic and us, and we're the support for them of, do we feel good about going or don't we? And it's, once again, this is coming down, comes down to the alcoholic or addict being honest with where they're at. Me and Matt are at a different place, and I think I can speak for Matt here. Me and Matt are at a different place than we were 4 or 5 years ago. 4 or 5 years ago, our answers would have been different than they are now. So the loved ones have to trust the alcoholic in order to make the plan from there.
Yeah, and I think, if you have a loved one that's in treatment, it's not a bad idea, if you're able to kind of reach out to the program or their counselor there or whoever, and just, get like a progress update or something, or just ask for their opinion. Be like, hey, you've been working with my daughter for the last 6 weeks. How do you feel? Do you feel like she's ready to be in this situation? Because, between them and like the conversations you're having with them, like it's pretty easy to tell, like if they're doing the work, if they're in the right headspace, if there's like a high risk for relapse or not. So like making an informed decision there can be beneficial as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that the loved ones were in the wrong unless they are saying, oh no, Tony, we have to go over there. So figure out how you can do it. At that point, you are then putting their sobriety at risk by saying that, no, there's no way that we can't. We've been showing up there for 30 years. There's no way that we can't. That's what, if anything, if they say, well, what do we need to not do anymore? That's what you need to not do. You cannot force somebody, especially somebody who's in treatment at the time or new in this thing, to go somewhere where they're uncomfortable. That's the worst thing in the world that you can do.
It's hard. It's just hard. And the holidays, just add another, like for family members, add another layer of their struggle around this. Do either of you feel like there's any part of this that I didn't ask, or that you feel like families should know, being strategic during the holiday time, whether their loved one is actively using, in treatment, or in early recovery, that we didn't cover?
I think we covered a lot of it, and I'm going to go back to my key word for this conversation and this night is because I know early on for me, when I first started to get sober or try to get sober, it's called the elephant in the room. And you cannot, let's get rid of the elephant in the room around somebody who we are trying to support, that might be struggling, as to where, hey, there might be 21 family members around that can drink normally and have their eggnog and just have a good time and a good night and enjoy family. And then there's that one person who, doesn't feel comfortable and is newly sober, or is just got out of treatment, or whatever the case is, that might be around. That whoever the parent, the sister, whoever the closest people are to that person who's bringing them or either hosting the family events, let's get the elephant out of the room, guys. It amongst yourselves. That means amongst the immediate, whoever that family member is that loved one is involved. Let's have a conversation before we go around the gathering and say, how do we feel about this? How do you feel about it? Because we are here to, if you're there to support them, you're going to take into account, what they're, and I love what Matt said. You're going to take into account what their counselor might have suggested to you. If they've been out a little bit longer, maybe than that, maybe they have a sponsor, and what the sponsor suggested to them, you're going to take that into account and you're going to say, we want to do what's comfortable for you this holiday, or make it the best as a collective whole as we can. So communication is the key. The elephant in the room has got to go. We cannot, nobody talking about it and you just sitting there all awkward, feeling weird and feeling like, God, I'd love to have a sip of that wine that Aunt Mary's drinking. That's got to stop, because eventually those thoughts can dangerously turn into you doing that as soon as people are cleaning up and leaving or whatever the case is. So this is about saving somebody for a night and trying to get people to enjoy their family and loved ones in a safe environment. And I think it's all about communicating what is the real true feeling, and what you feel safe doing and what you don't feel safe doing, and then making a plan from there.
Yeah, I really, Tony made a point earlier that I kind of want to reiterate that, cut your time windows shorter. Like if I'm going home for Thanksgiving, unless I live halfway across the country, and I gotta jump on airplanes and stuff, like there's not really a reason that to have like Thanksgiving dinner with my family, I need to be there from Wednesday afternoon until Sunday night. Like that's a long window for me to be like exposed to like a potentially hazardous environment, people, situations. It's easier if I'm still lingering around by Saturday for like someone to call me up and ask me what I'm doing than if I had just gone back to rehab. And like not, I'd say 9 out of 10 people probably live within 2 hours of wherever they're going to treatment. Like very rarely do you get someone that like lives in California or something like that. So like these are day trips most of the time that can be made. Um, and the second thing, like Mace, you kind of touched on at the beginning, like the stigma. I think, we think about stigma in society, but there's also the stigma within like the family and the community as well, right? Like, you know, if if I had a loved one that's like struggling with you know, MS or cancer or something like that. Like that's something like I would maybe like mention at work or whatever. And like a lot of people would run up and like support me. They might like make me a carrot cake and leave it on my doorstep, like whatever people do. But like I mentioned like, oh, hey, my son's like doing a lot of drugs right now. Like he's in rehab. Like people that aren't familiar with that, kind of the disease, the lifestyle, the causes or effects of it or like whatever. Like a lot of times their mind might go to like, oh, well, you must be like you must have raised them wrong, or what did you do to contribute to this, or how could you allow them to go out and do this? Don't you have any control or influence over them? And like you can even get that like within like a family system. So that can be like even harder because like it's easier for me to like meet some dude in McDonald's and be like, yeah, dude, I used to be a raging alcoholic. But like if like my uncle asked me about it, it'd be a lot more awkward because it's like a lot like closer of a relationship that I kind of have like more feelings about. Um, so yeah, like I was always nervous going into those like family situations of like, I really hope someone doesn't ask me like what's going on in rehab right now, or like they're uncomfortable situations to have. So like maybe a sidebar with like some of the people that are gonna like be at these functions and be like, hey, this is kind of like a tough time for so and so right now. Just like, you know, maybe don't bring it up or see if they bring it up. Like I think leaving it up to the person to bring it up is, kind of giving them the power helps them feel a lot more comfortable in those situations.
Wow. Okay. So I think this is a good spot to start wrapping up. So, if you could each like just kind of like, and we already started doing that, but like just give families some strategies, some strategic strategies as they go into the holiday. What would be your top 3 strategies?
Wow, top 3 strategies. Communicate. Number one would be communicate. Communicate to that person. So this is our, you would say something along the lines of, this is our, uh, plan for the holidays. This is where we'll be. This is who, this is what's going to be there in terms of people drinking. How do you feel about it? and go from there with maybe plan A, B, and C that can alleviate, if they feel uncomfortable with it or whatever the case is. Number two, um, have a have a plan. If you have, and I get it. There's some family members out there right now saying he doesn't understand my family. We have to go here. This is what it's been for 40 years. It's not going to change just because Mary Sue has a drinking problem. What do I do? If you have to go somewhere that is dangerous and your loved one has said, how I feel if I go there, try to shorten the time, and then make an out or a break plan that can occur during the time that you're there. And that break plan can be you and that person maybe going to the store. All of a sudden that you need they need macaroni and cheese, and you guys make a 30-minute macaroni and cheese trip. And that 30-minute trip, you're talking to your loved one saying, hey, how's it going? Do you need to call your sponsor? Your sponsor said to call you, or your counselor said that you could call them. Like, whatever the case is, make an out plan if there's somewhere that you have to be and have to go. And those are my two biggest strategies. If you have to go somewhere, have a strategic plan of a break, that person can get away from that place if it just gets too overwhelming. And then the first one is have communicate. So beforehand, communicate before you make it to the place, or you make it to your destination, and then and go from there.
Yeah, those were pretty big on my list too. Communication between like the family with the person in recovery, whoever else is going to be involved, have those conversations. So kind of make sure everyone's on the same page. Um, be adaptable because like I might tell you that, I'm good to go. And then I'm halfway there and all of a sudden I'm feeling super skittish and I don't really want to go anymore. So like, like Tony said, have backup plans, have escape routes. Um, and I think like the one thing we didn't actually really talk about, like we really harped that like in the family, we kind of led with the assumption that the family wants this person to be home for the holidays. I think we excluded the fact that like there are families that absolutely do not want their loved one home for the holidays. Like they've seen that before and they don't want to deal with it right now. Um, so those are going to have to be conversations that are had too. Usually it's like parents and their kids, like their kids want to come home. Um, but like remember, like regardless of who wants to be where, I always like to refer to like recovery as an investment, especially at like early recovery. Um, if I'm investing in something, I'm putting in time and effort and maybe money or like whatever to like hopefully get a better result down the line. So like if you're telling me like you could sacrifice one Thanksgiving or one New Year's to like have the rest of your life potentially that you're enjoying those holidays like sober and having fun with your family versus like, hey, like you mess this up, you might not see us for 6 more Christmases. Like, who knows? So, like,
Mhm.
remember, like, this is just like one holiday, one instance, and you have like the potential for a lot bigger and better things than just focusing on this one day. And like, don't push it. If you're not ready, if they're not ready, you know, hey, you got a recovery house full of guys and girls that are all going to sit around. Like, you guys can bake a turkey together, have a lot of fun, go hit a meeting. There's tons of meetings on like Wednesday into Thursday night of Thanksgiving and all the holidays. And we'll catch up another time.
Okay. I just want to add something to the communication, and I think you both touched on the communication piece of it. During this journey, communication, as we know, is the number one thing that deteriorates pretty quickly. And along with that communication is trust. There's a lot of trust broken. And so it's it's just hard to communicate when you're not trusting and when you're feeling like um something's going to happen. It's like and I'm just speaking as a family member, you're walking around with this dread of, on the one side, I'm afraid something's going to happen, something's going to trigger, you're going to drink or you're going to sneak a drink. And so I'm like helicoptering and not really even enjoying the holiday because I'm so worried about you relapsing. And at the same time, just trying to like enjoy the time with you. And all these, great suggestions and strategies that you're giving me. It's just a really difficult time. It's like this trying to have hope in hell, like trying to have hope in hell. Like, how can I even enjoy the holiday when I'm worried about you, whether you're actively using or you're, in treatment or you're 1 year clean or you're 4 years clean, like where do I like just enjoy and stop worrying and just relax. So I think about the serenity prayer and try to have families. I don't know it by heart, but I think that's a great suggestion also. To just what is it? One of you got to know it.
God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah, there you go. Just to kind of stay there. And just take it one day at a time, just one day at a time. So, all right. Anything else that we want to close with or say? Anything else?
No, I
Right,
think
so
we kind of covered like all the different scenarios, and obviously if anyone's watching this and they have like follow-up questions or, think of anything, like feel free to leave a comment, we're pretty responsive on there. If you need help with something or want clarification, it's a good place to reach us.
Yeah. And if this message helped anyone that's watching it, please feel free to, pass this podcast on, share it, like it.
It's a great Thanksgiving activity. Instead of watching the Giants play the Cowboys, you can put on the Addicts on
That's,
TV.
That's right. He's absolutely right about that.
So, all right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Matt.
All right, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
So transparent and vulnerable.
See you next month.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. All right. Bye.